Outlaw Law is brought to you by Whitaker and Hamer, attorneys and counselors at law. Your law firm for life.
Welcome back into the Outlaw Lawyers. Josh Whitaker and Joe Hamer, your hosts, are the managing partners at Whitaker and Hamer Law Firm. Offices conveniently located in Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay-Varina, Gastonia, and Morehead City. Also joining us from that Morehead City office, Cassandra Nichols, an attorney at Whitaker and Hamer. Gentlemen, we've got a lot to get to, and I think you're going to start off with Petition to Partition.
Yeah, we're going to get there. But before we get there, Cassandra, I had a thought. So Cassandra, you're down there. You're running our Morehead City office down in Morehead City, and
Yes.
And you're remoting in because we're in studio here in Wake County, so you're not making the drive down here. Have you?
No.
Since it's been cold. I don't live at the beach. I live down here in Raleigh. Do you go to the beach when it's cold?
I go near the beach. I go, to the bars and restaurants on the Intracoastal Waterway. So I can see water, but I'm not walking the beach when there's frost.
I see. I've always wondered about folks who maybe live down at the coast. You know, I'm a beach guy in the summer, right? I don't think I've ever been to the beach not in June or August, right? I think, or July. I think those are the only times I've ever gone to the beach growing up. But I always wonder about that because you'll see somebody put that on Facebook or something, and it'll just be bundled up walking down the beach.
It's not as crowded.
Windy though.
I'm a big off-season person. I love the lack of crowds. Although it's still a
You don't like all
novelty
the. Are you
to
already
me,
one of those people? The tourist. These tourists.
Exactly. I mean, at this point, they can still consider me a tourist, but a couple years from now, I'm sure the novelty of the beach will have worn off.
No,
I'll
come
just
on.
be
Don't be
hunkered
like
down in my
that.
backyard.
No.
The sea.
I got one of those.
Appreciate what you
those
have.
fancy. Yeah, those like outdoor heaters that they use at restaurants and stuff.
Oh,
I got
yeah,
one
nice.
for my back porch, so that's been great.
Yeah. The
Stood out there and watched the meteors last night.
God, you've been doing a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, I know.
What have we been doing?
It's almost like you don't have any kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Just rub it in.
Yeah. The all right, petition to partition. Me and Joe,
I've been getting a lot of these lately too.
yeah, it's a call. I think I got a consult later today. I think I got one tomorrow. So this is something that comes up quite a bit. And basically there's all kinds of fact patterns, right? So me and Joe, if we own a piece of property, just me and Joseph, and we get in a disagreement, Joe wants to sell, I want to hold on to it.
That's the fact pattern, right?
That's the fact.
That's how it always starts.
That's right. It starts with me and you not getting along.
Yeah.
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 But if I wanted, so we'll say if I wanted to sell, Joe won't sell. Obviously, I can't make him, like between me and him, we can't fight it out.
You
right?
can ask me very, very forcefully.
Yeah.
And you can beg me, but yeah, you cannot you by yourself cannot compel me to do anything.
So, but what I can
But you
do,
can be compelled.
That's true.
that's right. What a person can do is I can file a petition to partition. It's a statute. I think it's chapter 46A. I didn't write that down, but I think it's chapter 46A. But that is the petition to partition statute. I can file an action against Joseph, and I can ask the court and say, look, we own this piece of property. We don't agree with how it needs to be managed. I think we need to sell it. He thinks we need to hold on to it. And you can ask the court for a couple of things, right? So if me and Joe own 50 acres, I can ask the court and say, hey, I want to split the 50 acres into 225 acres. So the court can actually partition the property if it's feasible. But if, say, me and Joe, we own a commercial townhouse, right? Like a little townhouse office, you can't really split that up, right? A judge can't partition that. And so in that case, I would be asking the court, like, hey, we can't agree. I want to sell it, right? And the court can order a sale of the property, even though Joe doesn't want to listen to me and he wants to hold on to it. So the court can still order that. And there's a lot of different ways it can go after that. But that is the Cassandra, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's like the basic procedure. That's what you're looking at.
Yeah, and the court does favor the partition in kind where they're actually splitting the property, but obviously where it's not possible, they have to force the sale.
I see it a lot. Another way that it really comes up is like, someone passes away. Maybe they haven't done a good job estate planning, right? So someone passes away and then their heirs, their children all inherit a piece of property. and they can't agree on what to do with the property. Some want to sell, some want to hold, some want to rent out. Maybe one of the kids want to buy it and live there, right? There's all this disagreement on what to do with it. And a lot of times that becomes a petition to partition action. A lot of times, one of the kids who now own like a 1/8 will file a petition to partition to kind of force the sale.
And you mentioned something there. That's the drawback to joint ownership, right? Like you have 8 owners. It takes one person that does not want to cooperate with you to completely jack up the process for everybody else. And that's it. That we get that question a lot, right? We've got this one sibling that just doesn't want to play ball. 7 people in agreement. This one person does not agree. And they're like, what do you do? And what do? You petition to partition. That's at the end of the day.
Yeah, you also see it where maybe like 5 or 6 kids have inherited this property and they're now co-owners or joint owners of this real property, and you don't know where one of the kids is. Like no one's heard from them for 10 years. Yeah. They've inherited 1/6, and so the petition to partition can also take care of that, right? So if it's not even someone maybe being disagreeable, right? And it's also, if you can't locate heirs, we see plenty of these where we got a bunch of unknown heirs. The court has a process for trying to discover heirs, protect unknown heirs, but still let you move forward. Because that holds up a lot of things too, is when that happens. Because, we see some of these properties where the last deeded owner was from the 50s, and that owner has died, left it to their children. Their children have died, and it's gone to grandkids.
That's definitely where I see it the most, where the folks that actually inherited it just didn't do anything with it. So now it's a much larger pool at the next generation and gets so much more complicated.
And you can do all the due diligence in the world, and it can be such a complex web of people and entities that have taken property by inheritance or otherwise that you can literally exhaust every avenue and have no clue who certain heirs are that have an ownership interest in the property.
And that's the kind of problem that kind of compounds over time. Like every year you don't take care of something like that, it just gets worse and worse and worse, and you're dealing with a new generation. And
these kids these days, man.
And then you got spouses, right? Because we know in North Carolina, even though my kids may inherit what I've left them one day, if it's real property and they want to sell it, their spouses have to be involved. Even if the marital interest in North Carolina kind of confuses some folks, right? So even if a spouse doesn't have any ownership claims to a piece of property, they still have this marital interest that has to be signed away. And so, this goes generation to generation. There's always going to be like it seems like there's always one couple where a spouse won't cooperate for whatever reason. But just looking at it from the point of getting the property sold, it can be very difficult. And a petition to partition kind of solves a lot of these problems. And I think a lot of people just don't even know it's a process that exists, but it's a pretty good statute. It makes a lot of sense. It's been litigated a lot, so it's pretty fleshed out. So most attorneys who are familiar with it know what you can do and you can't do. It can't solve every problem.
I do want to mention, you did just bring up spouses and spousal interests. That's one more situation where this is really common, is after divorces, if marital property wasn't split through equitable division during the divorce, then this is a potential solution as well.
Yeah, and that's a good things where it can't be used, right? It's not normally used. Like if you have a corporation where you're a shareholder, you got an LLC where you're a member, and you got multiple members, you can't use that. This isn't a way that you would make, like if me and Joe owned Real Property LLC and we were having the same dispute over a piece of property owned by the LLC, this really isn't the way you would go about fixing a dispute between us to sell a piece of property, right? So if it's owned in a corporate entity or if it's owned in a trust, the real property, this really isn't the best way to go about it. And then, like you said, if you're a married couple, like if I own real property with my spouse, a petition to partition is not the way to handle it, unless, like you said, Cassandra, we were to be divorced. And then we kind of own it a different way under the law, and then a petition to partition may be the way to go if it wasn't already taken care of.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to state, just from a practical standpoint, the petition to partition is a way to get this done, But I think also we are going to advise generally that you try every other avenue to get it done prior to resorting to this, because again, you lose a lot of the elements of control that you would otherwise have. So you try to negotiate a fix, and there's some situations it's just not possible. But if you're dealing with a person that you can talk and communicate to that's just not cooperating, I think we're going to try everything we can prior to resorting to this, because again, you're putting this into the hands of the court, and that's not always going to get the best result for you or give you an optimal result necessarily. There's some degree of control that you lose.
Yeah, these things are always a negotiation too. So even after it's filed, you'll see parties negotiate, and just like any other lawsuit, right? If you were in a car accident and you had to sue the other driver to get compensated for your injuries, there's always negotiation between the parties and the insurance company. So just like any other type of litigation, negotiation will always be a part of it. But that's a quick couple of minutes about petition to partition. So hopefully, our goal in this show is always to just talk about things that we get questions about in our law office, in our daily practice. And so this is something we've seen a lot more lately for whatever reason, but definitely find that people aren't aware that it's a process that exists. So glad we got a chance to talk about it.
Coming up next on the Outlaw Lawyers, we're going to talk about flavored baccy. That's right. Stay tuned. The Outlaw Lawyers, Josh Whitaker and Joe Hamer, managing partners, Whitaker and Hamer Law Firm. Offices located Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay, Varina, Gastonia, and in Morehead City. Cassandra Nichols also joining us from the Morehead City office today, also an attorney at Whitaker and Hamer. If you are facing a situation, maybe it's a situation where it's petition to partition and you need some consultation, you can always call Whitaker and Hamer, 800-659-1186. That's 800-659-1186. And leave your contact information, briefly what the call is about, and an attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will be in touch. And you can always email your questions to the show. We'll answer them on a future broadcast, questions@theoutlawlawyer.com. And when we come back, we'll talk R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company versus Bonta. Yes, it's about flavored tobacco.